it again. We're going back to Omaha. And it's on to the College World Series Final. The 2015 National Champions.
Welcome to an ACC Tournament edition of 1186 The Podcast, the official podcast of the University of Virginia baseball program. The Who's the 4 seed in this week's tournament. They will face Georgia Tech at 11 a.m. on Wednesday and then Florida State at 11 a.m. on Friday, trying to advance out of pool play and into this weekend semifinals. We are joined, as we are each week, by Scott Fitzgerald and Andrew Ramsbacher, and we welcome back live from location in Charlotte, North Carolina, the head baseball coach, Brian O'Connor, joining us once again here on 1186 The Podcast. And Oak, you go into this tournament as the 4 seed, as we mentioned, coming off a sweep at home of the Hokies to end the regular season. How do you feel about where you guys as a team have set yourselves up coming out of the regular season and now going into the ACC tournament and eventually the postseason?
Well, Damon, thanks for having me on again. I feel great about it. You know, certainly having your rival at home and sweeping a 3-game series to finish off the regular season. You all know it's really hard to get to 40 wins in college baseball, and the fact that this team accomplished that, and with only playing 54, we ended up playing 2 less than the maximum amount of games you can play. To be 40-14 shows the consistency that this team played with all year long. Certainly there were some tough series where you'd lose the first 2 at Miami, but you'd salvage game 3, or series that we wouldn't win. But overall, it was a great regular season, and to cap it off the way we did against Virginia Tech on the last week, and especially game 3 on a walk-off 2-run home run by Harrison Didewick. I feel great, and I feel great about being here in Charlotte. We just got done with a workout this morning, practice, and then looking forward to locking it up with Georgia Tech tomorrow, and then Florida State on Friday.
What, from a coach's standpoint, what is your sort of mindset, your approach to this tournament, especially when you're not necessarily on the bubble for the NCAA tournament? You're going to be playing postseason baseball a week from now. What's sort of the approach to this tournament, to this week?
Well, it's to continue to play great winning baseball. I think that you always want your team to play the best they can and to win the game. So we're gonna run Evan Blanco out there tomorrow at 11 a.m. to put us in the best possible position to win the game in front of us, because certainly they matter for the tournament, to have an opportunity to get to Saturday to try to then get to Sunday to try to win an ACC championship. But you're also building your resume for the selection show on Monday to put your team in the best possible position, whether that be a number 1 seed, or whether that be to host an NCAA regional or try to be a top 8 national seed. So, what you get rewarded on Monday is a result of what you do the entire year, but this is also part of it as well. So, and then, the players come here to, one of their goals is to try to win an ACC championship, and this is the week that you do that. So we're not going to hold anything back. We're going to treat it like we have all year, and do everything we can to win this thing. That said, we've won a national championship. We've been to Omaha a number of times, and that's happened sometimes with not having a lot of success in the ACC tournament. So you give it everything you have this week, and then you move on and see where you're going for the NCAA tournament, and you start your trek to Omaha.
Yeah, I guess that being said, and knowing that history that success or lack of success at the ACC tournament doesn't always perfectly translate to the NCAA tournament. What are things do you look for from your team in a week like this when you have a regional looming the following week?
Just to continue, Andrew, to have that, that competitive spirit and doing the things that it takes to win, because, some years there is carryover that, that maybe you don't play well and then you don't play well in the NCAA tournament. And some years it doesn't matter. And then there's years we've won the ACC tournament and championship and advanced on Omaha. So it's more about, playing the game the right way and continue to build momentum, moving into the NCAA tournament while still, putting yourself in a position to win a championship. So everything matters. I know you'll hear about in this format that we play the ACC tournament in, that there was meaningless games. In my opinion, that's a lot of talk out there. I can promise you that players and coaches don't ever look at it as there's games that don't mean anything. And part of that is because of the format of the tournament, and it forces some games that don't mean anything for the tournament to try to advance. But they all matter a lot, and that'll be our focus and what we're concentrating on.
Oh, when an outsider looks at this format, 4 pools, you got to win 2 games or 1-1 top seed. What's your kind of overall take on how this kind of came about? I mean, there's positives and negatives to both sides of it. The amount of games you're guaranteed, the amount of games you play, but there's also, like you said, there might be that game where you're not competing for the championship. But what's your kind of take of how this thing is structured?
Well, there's a few different formats you can choose to do a college baseball tournament in, and they just ones have certain advantages and disadvantages, and vice versa. But it used to be some time ago in the ACC where it was a true double elimination tournament. And the positive of that is from this point forward after the ACC tournament, you have to lose 2 games before your season's over. So there's something to the advantage of a true double elimination tournament where you're playing and your team's learning how to play with their backs against the wall with 1 loss, or they could be going home. But that said, for the fans and for television, knowing the first 4 days of the tournament, when your team is playing, at what time, is a real advantage as well. And also, too, when we made this switch from the double elimination tournament to this pool play, it does protect your pitching a little bit for next weekend, because in a true double elimination conference tournament, you could potentially play 5 games and it could burn your pitching pretty good for the next weekend. And ultimately our league is judged by how many teams do you get to Omaha, and do you have a team that wins or has a chance to win the national championship. So we switched to this format partly because it does protect the teams to be in the best possible position next weekend. So as a competitor I don't like it, because a true double elimination tournament, you got to get beat twice, but understand it. And it's been very beneficial to our baseball program. Being to Omaha 6 times, it is proven to be helpful from that standpoint. At least we think, you just don't know. It does allow 12 teams to go to the tournament and gives everybody 2 ball games. So at least the teams that are on the bubble for the NCAA tournament, rather than the opening day, it be a single elimination to advance to a double elimination tournament, it does give the teams that are on the bubble at least 2 opportunities to win games to get themselves into the NCAA tournament. So that said, it can work the opposite. A team can go 0-2 here that's barely into the tournament, and it can knock them out as well. And so that's why whatever format it is, it comes down to playing good baseball and winning the games.
For this specific tournament and for you guys, do you like how it's set up? And it's almost like a regular week for you. You're playing Wednesday and then you're playing Friday, and also you have the first game. So there won't be any delays in terms of waiting for other games to go. Do you like how you're positioned this year?
Yeah, I like how the schedule shaked out. I don't mind playing the 11 a.m. game because if you have weather or long games, extra inning games, when your game starts every day, and so that's not a problem at all. And the fact that our first game is Wednesday, and Georgia Tech and Florida State will play each other today prior to us playing them. Certainly is an advantage, but it's an advantage that's earned when you're one of the top 4 seeds. So that's the advantage of that. And it allows us to play on Wednesday and hopefully win the baseball game and then practice on a day and get ready for Florida State on Friday. So it worked out. How it works, Fitz, is the top 2 finishers in the league actually get to choose the off day that they want in the tournament that their pool has off. And we've been in that situation before, too, where we finished first or second in the league in the regular season and been able to have that choice and kind of dictate the schedule that you have for that week. But I like our position. I like when our games are. And, now let's go out and play them and play well.
Look, long before you guys had been to Omaha or obviously won the national championship in 2015, the first championship, right, that came under your while you were coaching came in 2009 in Durham at the ACC tournament. What we've talked a lot about kind of landmark moments in the program's history. Where does that rank for you?
Yeah, I thought that was a really big one. It's up there, Andrew, for sure. And there's an example of we played so well in that ACC tournament, won the title. Up until that point that our staff had been at UVA, we hadn't won a championship. And what I mean by it, we hadn't won an ACC championship, and I think this was like in year 4 or 5 of being here. We hadn't won an ACC championship and hadn't won a regional championship. And there's something to be learned in a program of what does it take to win a championship. And so I really felt like winning that ACC title kind of propelled our team's confidence to then, move on to win a regional championship and then win the super regional to go on to Omaha. So that's a great example of that year of how beneficial of playing well and winning the tournament really springboarded that team to end up pushing down the door and winning a regional and then winning our first super regional.
You mentioned earlier that you're going to start Blanco tomorrow, that he's going to get the start against Georgia Tech. He's a guy who maybe was forced to grow up a little bit faster than you originally intended this season. How do you think he has kind of grown into and developed in that Friday starter role and been kind of the guy you're counting on Friday nights?
Yeah, well, Damon, he's earned that. And, he had a really good freshman year for us where he pitched out of our bullpen and pitched a lot of really, really meaningful innings at high pressure situations. And so, listen, I know every pitcher wants to come into a program and wants to start, right? But what you learn by pitching out of the bullpen towards the end of the game like Blanco did last year is incredibly valuable for then when you transition to being a starter. And we felt like, he could be a starter this year. He earned that responsibility. And then, some things happened that catapulted him into, the number one starter, the Friday night starter per se. And he's done a really fantastic job and has really grown and developed. I felt like Thursday night against Virginia Tech, he had the best outing he's ever had in our uniform. He made big pitches. He executed, managed innings, pitched deep into the game. And we needed that. And that was a big step forward for him in his development, his career. So, just really, really proud of him. He's thrown darn near 75 innings. And you throw 75 innings at this level and you have an ERA below 4, you're doing some pretty good things. And so just his stuff is getting better and better. His fastball velocity on Thursday night at against Virginia Tech was the best it had been all year. So, look forward to him competing tomorrow. Georgia Tech's got a really talented lineup. And the challenging part for him is 8 of their 9 starters are right-handed hitters. All right, they only have one lefty in their lineup. he pitched really good against them earlier in the year, except one inning. He had one bad inning to where, they got 6 runs off of him, and I know it's a lot, but
they were finding holes, right? They were just finding holes.
Yeah, it was just a bad inning.
Yeah, it was a tough inning, but prior to that and after that, he pitched good baseball. So hopefully that's a learning opportunity for him, and he'll be better out there tomorrow morning.
How much has he been able to sort of his emergence stabilize the rest of the pitching staff and allow you to kind of tinker in other spots?
Yeah, when he was not starting on Fridays in our number 1, he was doing a really good job too. And when we had to move things around with our starters, he really stepped up and responded. And it's just so important in this league to have a good, solid number 1 starter, because when you start a weekend, if you're working from behind or you get somebody that goes out there and throws 2 or 3 innings, that makes it really, really tough on the bullpen for the rest of the series. So he's done a very nice job of, pitching past the 5th inning on a consistent basis and keeping us in the ball game. And I mean, you all know the kind of offensive year that we're having, and you just need guys. You don't need to have them go out there and be dominant. You need to go out there and have them keep you in the game and manage the game to get it to the back half of it, because we've got a chance every night offensively to do something special.
Greg Medea wrote an article today about, I guess, the experience on the roster this year in terms of postseason. You've got a core group of players, Griffo Farrell, Ethan Anderson, guys that have been not only here in Charlotte, but in Omaha. Do you see that leadership kind of, trickling down to the guys that haven't been there yet?
I do, and I actually, Fitz, saw it last weekend. I think, when we lost the series to NC State, who's as hot as anybody in America right now, I just sensed and felt and saw, our leadership taking hold of the team and getting them to understand what we need to do to be successful. And when you have the experience that we do, especially from a position player standpoint, it's incredibly valuable. And those guys have done a nice job, whether it's Anthony Stefan or Griffo Farrell and Ethan Anderson. But you think about even some of the second years and Luke Hansen and Henry Godbout and Harrison Didewick, Casey Sauke, that's a incredible core that has a ton of experience at championship time. And so that's been incredibly valuable for us. And, Blanco's somebody that's had, this is his second year with us, but he was in the fire last year, and other guys on the pitching staff as well.
How have you seen your different leaders throughout the years? Is there an example of a real rah-rah guy that always stands out to you? And then is there an example of a guy that's led by example that's always stood out to you?
Well, I tell you, most of them are lead by example. There's really not too many, rah-rah guys. Aiden Teal filled that role for us last year when he couldn't play, and he brought a lot of energy and enthusiasm to our team. He still does, but not quite on that level, just because of what his role and his responsibility is, being on the mound at the end of the game. But, I couldn't pick out somebody that's really the rah-rah person, but I would say Anthony Stefan does a tremendous job of, having poise and bringing the guys together and saying the right things in the dugout when you need it most. And, I would say he'd be the one that would be the most, influential throughout the game and making sure that our guys are locked in. But it's a highly motivated group that understands what they do. We do something different in our program than not a lot of programs do, in that we don't have captains. It's been a number of years, at least a decade, since we've had captains. And the reason is because I just feel like we have so many leaders in our program and you don't want to hold any of them down because of a title. And so I asked all of them to be leaders in their own way. And so, what is that in the background?
You're a leader in your own way.
There you go. A little
I've never
fireworks.
seen that.
Okay.
For Sunday, I
Yeah,
guess.
what are you doing?
This is not me. I have no idea.
A new feature. To
No, stop.
This is outstanding. Right?
For the listeners,
man.
for the listeners, it's just fireworks going off behind.
Yeah.
Coach O'Connor.
Yeah. Okay. Let's hope that's all it is fireworks. But
What did you have for lunch?
just leadership is so important, and it pulls you through the challenging times. And what I want to share with you guys, I know the three of you know this, but the listeners might not. Do you know our longest losing streak this year is 2 games?
Yeah.
That's incredible, right? And so that's the sign of a team that maybe when things don't go well, they're ready the next day to stand up. And that's really unheard of, that the longest losing streak is 2 games, because that means, we never got swept in an ACC series, and sweeps happen all the time in this league. So that, to me, speaks to what our leadership is like in our clubhouse and in our dugout, from the players. I've always believed the best teams, the leadership and the direction comes from within, and not the coach from the players that are great leaders. And so that's a tremendous example of what I'm talking about.
Can you detect when you're recruiting a guy that he has that leadership gene, or is it something that is it a skill you can develop, or how does that work?
I think it's both. I think you can tell when you recruit a young man, like, has he shown those traits in high school? A lot of high school quarterbacks, for example, or point guards in basketball and things like that, are, they're put in the scenarios in high school that they need to lead others. And, what's their personality? Are they more quiet and reserved? Are they more outgoing and willing to say the difficult things? So you can tell a little bit of it through recruiting. That said, it's something that's learned when they're in the program and kind of passed down. And, for example, every day at the end of the day, we call it up and say Omaha together at the end of the practice or a game. And, Kyle Teal did that last year, and this year Ethan Anderson's doing it. And it's nothing that I appoint, it's player driven. And, when you call it up for the first time in the fall, you wonder as a coach, okay, who's going to be the guy? Who's going to be the guy that's going to call them up? And every year somebody steps forward and takes on that responsibility. And, so fortunately we've got a lot of guys with the great quality of leadership to help this team.
Obviously, the story with the lineup is the ball flying out of the yard, but this feels like a lineup that can beat you in other ways too. How dangerous can a lineup like this be this time of year now, when you're not just relying on the long ball, when you can beat a team in a variety of ways?
Yeah, I think it's critically important. It's certainly pitching is very, very important, but the college game is really offensive. It's as offensive as it ever has been. And, I think we're one of the top teams in the country in hits, right? Probably not one of the top teams in the country in home runs. I don't know that, but we've also set our home run record for a single season here at Virginia. So, we just have the ability to have a great 2-strike approach and get hits and extend innings. And then all of a sudden, somebody's able to drive a ball at a ballpark. And, anyone and everybody in our lineup can hit it, is capable of hitting a ball out of the ballpark. But they also have a tough 2-strike approach. And we don't bunt as much as we did, 7-10 years ago. And that's all dictated by the talent and skill that you have in that lineup. And so it's a deep lineup. Not only are your bottom of the lineup high quality hitters. I mean, you think about it, Henry Godbout's hitting 375 with 6 or 7 home runs, and he's usually hitting the 7 or 8 spot. That's a pretty good lineup if you have that going on. And certainly the middle of it's dangerous. So this time of the year, Damon, it's crucial because the weather warms up, and when the weather warms up, it's what Charlie Manuel used to call hitting season, right? When you have the warm weather and the wind's blowing a little bit, the ball flies out a little bit more. It's a great time to hit, and so you need a great offensive team to win this ACC tournament. The ball flies out of this ballpark. I think when we played here 2 years ago, it was the most home runs ever hit in an ACC tournament. I believe I'm correct about that. And already in game 1 between Louisville and Miami, there were 5 home runs hit in the game. So, offense is critically important this time of the year if you're going to win in advance.
Look, obviously, I think next time we'll have this pod will probably be after Selection Monday and even Selection Sunday the night before, where they announce regional hosts, things of that nature. You've been through a ton of these, right, over your career. What is how do you approach this selection show with your team? How do you take in the information yourself? How have you developed that approach over the years? And does there have to be a strategy involved in how you inform your team after the selections come out?
Yeah, well, I go into our approaches with excitement. It's one of the neat experiences of young men playing college baseball is the opportunity in that show to learn, okay, who are we playing? Whether you're at home or on the road. If it's on the road and you're not a regional site, all right, where are you going? If it's at home, who's coming here? And certainly there's a lot of excitement around it. I get the whole team together. We have lunch. We watch the show, and it fires you up about what the opportunity is that you have in front of you. So it's a great day in a college baseball player's career is to see yourself in that NCAA tournament, because if you don't, it's over. And there's a lot of teams that are pretty disappointed on that day because they don't get the opportunity to advance. So it's a day of celebration, enjoyment. And then we always, most days, if the weather allows, late in the afternoon, we have a cookout or something like that, whether it be at my house or a place in Charlottesville, and enjoy time together, and then turn our focus on Tuesday to the team that we would play on Friday in the regional. So, it's a day that caps off what you've done all year long and what you've earned. And so we'll look forward to that on Monday, getting together in the club at the stadium and watching the selection show.
Scott, you want to give him your trivia question?
Yeah, so I've got 2. One we kind of already went to, but I think it's a good question for you, Oak. Do you know who the last person, since we just went through a walk-off here against Virginia Tech, walk-off home run by Harrison Didowick? Do you know the last player to hit a walk-off homer in the ACC tournament?
Can you give me the year?
What if we gave you? Hold on. What if we gave you the pitcher? Can we give him the pitcher?
Do you know the pitcher?
I know the pitcher.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. All right, wait. Is this the one you asked beforehand?
I think so. Yeah.
2013, right?
2013. Yeah.
And the pitcher was famous for a sport that he ended up not playing professionally in.
No, he didn't play baseball professionally.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so.
Oh yeah, good point.
That has to be Jameis Winston.
Yes.
Florida State. So Kenny Towns.
Yeah, that's right.
Kenny Towns.
Woo!
Still unbeaten.
I forgot about who the pitcher was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. That's a good one, Andrew.
Yeah,
I thought that's what you were getting at when you wanted that, when you pitched that as the trivia question.
So,
no, I did not. Yeah, I was just going through some stuff. That was good.
So Kenny hit that off of him, and at that point, just for some context, Jameis had redshirted football-wise that fall. He had not been Jameis Winston.
He was not Jameis yet.
And the following fall is when he emerged on the scene and won the national championship and the Heisman Trophy as a redshirt freshman at Florida State.
Wow.
So Kenny always has that. Kenny always has that that claim to fame there, that he went yard on a guy who ended up being number 1 pick of the draft too.
And I don't think, if I remember correctly, UVA hit another walk-off home run until Devin Ortiz against ODU in 2021 to go to the Super Regional. In the postseason. Yeah, in the post.
That was a pretty big one, David.
Yeah. I remember where I was.
I'll tell you what, I just I'm so proud of Devin Ortiz. He's one of the stories that I love in the history of our baseball program, and how his career went and how it ended, and he's doing great in professional baseball and being successful in the minor leagues, and just one of the really great stories of a player that has worn our uniform. And then what he was able to do in 2021 with pitching and hitting, and really kind of leading that 21 team. Talk about a leader, right? There's an example of, in today's day and age with the transfer portal, he probably would have left Virginia after a year or two, but the fact that he stuck it out and had the great back part of the career that he had and got 2 degrees from Virginia is incredibly impressive.
All right, and my part 2, we kind of, Oak, you already had mentioned it, but 2021 was the most home runs ever in the ACC tournament. So it was also the game against Notre Dame was the most we've hit in an ACC tournament game. Can you name the 4 players that homered in the 2021 game against Notre Dame? There's some significance to this because it was the first homer of a guy that hit a lot.
Oh, that was his first home run, wasn't it?
So
2021 Charlotte, balls flying out.
Jake Geloff.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
And
Zach Geloff.
Zach also hit one. So the brothers hit one.
Did they hit him in the same inning? Am I remembering?
That one, let's see here. It was like the first thing.
Because Jake would have been near the bottom of the lineup, and then Zach near
it was the second inning.
Did Kyle Teal hit one?
Nope.
I remember at least one of them.
Who else, Fitz?
It was Nick Kent.
And Tappan?
And Alex Tappan,
Yeah.
In the second inning, Nick Kent homered. Jake homered in the second inning.
All while Doug Dowdy was texting you in the dugout.
Yeah. What's the score, Brian?
Yeah.
I tell you, he goes right to the source. I tell you what. Oh man.
Ties there.
Doug was always at his best ACC tournament time.
Great snacks. All right, that seems like a pretty good spot to wrap things up here on 1186 the podcast. Like Andrew said, we'll find out in a couple of days what the postseason roadmap's going to look like, trying to get back to Omaha if we'll be starting again here in Charlottesville like last year. Hopefully that'll mean more great postseason crowds here in Charlottesville for UVA baseball, but we can touch on all that next week once we know what the regional situation looks like. For now, Oak, thanks for taking the time to join us down there in Charlotte. And for Scott, for Andrew, I'm Damon. Thanks once again for joining us here on 1186 Podcast.